It's like how a ship doesn't sink from a single storm, but from hundreds of small leaks left unpatched. This story isn't just mine. Many well-known entrepreneurs have fallen into similar invisible traps. Take Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks, who once shared that one of the lessons he learned while expanding the coffee chain was small operational mistakes, if left unchecked, become cracks in the foundation of your business. And this holds true in everyone's financial life. Or Dave Ramsey, a renowned financial expert in the US, who went bankrupt when he was young due to uncontrolled spending. Later, he became a leading figure in the intentional spending movement, constantly reminding people, you cannot build wealth by spending money you don't even realize you've spent. We don't need to become rich overnight, but we need to stay sharp, to see the small financial leaks happening every day. Because if you're not careful, you're losing money legally and all in silence. Since that day, I started tracking every expense not to control, but to awaken myself. I learned to read contracts carefully. I scrutinized every investment, no matter how small, because I understood wealth doesn't come from luck. It comes from awareness in the smallest financial actions. And you can start the same way. Right now, all it takes is a piece of paper, a pen, and the courage to face the truth. Yes, financial ruin doesn't come from one big shock, but from the unnoticed small leaks. And when I started stepping back, observing my cash flow more closely, I was stunned. Not by a failed investment, not by a luxurious purchase, but by the small, seemingly harmless expenses that kept repeating day after day. They're like termites, quietly gnawing at the foundation of your house. At first, you don't feel a thing, but over time, the foundation begins to shake. It's time to face them. Below are 13 silent expenses, the legal money eaters you might be nurturing every day without even knowing it. Great. Let's continue from where we left off, where I warned you about the silent destroyers that are quietly eating away at the wealth you've worked so hard to build. And the first one on that list is inflation, a strange thief of wealth. It doesn't leave a trace, it doesn't send you a bill, but its consequences are as slow and steady as a crack in your foundation. I used to think the money I earn and keep in the bank is safe, but the reality has made me more alert than ever. Because inflation doesn't knock on your door to give you a warning, and it doesn't ask for your permission before taking away your purchasing power, little by little, every day. Imagine this. If you had $100 in 2019, you could buy 3 full bags of groceries. But today, with that same $100, you can only buy 2 bags, and you might not even have enough left to buy a carton of milk. That's how inflation nibbles away at your wallet, little by little, without you noticing. The problem is, many people still choose to let their money sit idle in a savings account with an interest rate below 1%, or worse, stash it under their mattress, as if that's a safe haven. But did you know, while you sleep, soundly feeling secure, your money is dying slowly every single day. That's not saving, that's losing money legally and passively. I learned this lesson when reading about Ray Dalio, the legendary investor behind Bridgewater Associates. He once said, cash is trash. Money is trash if you don't know how to make it work for you. And reality has proven him right. Persistent investors, those who aren't afraid to learn and regularly invest in the stock market, have been outpacing inflation. According to historical data, the US stock market has delivered an average return of 7 to 10% annually, far higher than the average inflation rate of 2 to 3%. This means if you invest smartly and with a strategy, your money not only survives inflation, it grows. I'm not saying you need to be Warren Buffett or have millions of dollars to start. You can start small, steadily each month through ETFs or shares of strong companies like Apple or Coca-Cola, brands you use every day and the world trusts. So, don't let inflation silently steal your financial future. Make your money work even while you sleep. That's how successful people build wealth, not through luck, but through knowledge and consistent action. And if you start today, even with just one small step, you're already miles ahead of the person you were yesterday. The moment I began to understand the quiet devastation of inflation, I thought I had finally woken up. But then I realized there were other traps lurking in the shadows this time. disguised as well-dressed financial advisors, the very people I once trusted with my financial future. Investment fees, they sound harmless, just about 1% a year. Honestly, I used to think 1%? That's nothing. But I was wrong. And chances are, you might be under the same illusion I once was. Let me share with you a classic example, one that shook me to my core. Suppose you invest $500,000 over 30 years, with an average annual return of 7%. You could end up with around $3.8 million, a bright future, a worry-free retirement. But if you're paying just a 1% annual management fee, what you actually keep drops to $2.8 million. Yes, you read that right, $1 million gone. Not because you made bad investment decisions, but because that tiny fee quietly drained it away year after year. Can you imagine it? $1 million that could be your dream home, your children's college education, or a peaceful retirement. But all of it vanished simply because you didn't pay attention to the cost of letting someone else handle your investments. That's when I started scrutinizing every investment I had. And then I uncovered a truth most people are too polite or too afraid to say out loud. Many financial advisors get rich not because they're brilliant investors, but because they charge fees to people who don't know any better. People like me. So I dug deeper, and I found the answer in one critical concept: low cost and transparent. I began shifting my money into index funds, investment tools that track the performance of the broader market, like the S&P 500. These funds don't need someone to actively manage them, which means the operating fees are incredibly low, sometimes as little as 0.03%. Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors in American history, once said, "Most people should invest in low-cost index funds. It's the most sensible way to build long-term wealth." And he didn't just say it, he lived by it. In his will, Buffett instructed that 90% of the money left to his wife be invested in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. He believed in that strategy so deeply, he bet the financial future of the person he loved most on it. You see, you don't need to be a financial genius. You just need to understand one simple truth: small fees plus long time equals massive losses. Don't let blind trust cost you the best years of your life. Be smart, be vigilant, and most of all, make sure every single dollar you earn is working for your future, not padding someone else's wallet. After I finally escaped the hidden traps of excessive management fees, I was hit with an even more expensive lesson: the cost of ignorance and dependence. When I was 22, fresh out of college, I knew absolutely nothing about investing. Like many young people, I figured I should turn to an expert, someone who seemed to understand the financial world inside and out. He spoke with confidence, presented investment plans with flashy charts, and assured me he would optimize my returns. I believed him, and just like that, I handed over control of my financial future to someone else, simply because I didn't believe I was capable of making those decisions myself. But as the years passed, questions began to creep in. Why did my investment portfolio look so complicated that even I couldn't make sense of it? Why were the returns so underwhelming? Yet the management fees kept draining my account like clockwork, quietly, consistently, without fail. It took me a decade to face a painful truth. I wasn't being guided in my best interest. I was being managed for their benefit. These so-called experts earned commissions by selling me complex, underperforming financial products. I was just a pawn, pushed into decisions I didn't fully understand. But what shocked me even more was this: it's not always the experts who lead you astray. Sometimes it's the people who love you the most: family, friends, trusted voices. They urge you to invest in this, buy into that, simply because they heard it was good or know someone who made a lot of money from it. But good intentions don't always equal sound advice. I think of Kevin O'Leary, the renowned investor from Shark Tank. He once said that one of his worst financial mistakes was investing based on a friend's recommendation, out of emotion. The result? He lost millions of dollars on a project with no solid financial foundation, all because he trusted the wrong person. So I learned something fundamental. If you don't make your own financial decisions, someone else will, and it'll usually be in their best interest, not yours. I no longer let others choose for me. I no longer sign contracts I don't fully understand. Because I've realized this. Ignorance doesn't just make you poor. It steals your power. Be alert. Keep learning. And above all, be the final decision maker when it comes to your own money. Because no one, absolutely no one, cares more about your future than you do. After I firmly reclaimed control over my financial decisions, I thought I had taken a major step toward freedom. But as it turns out, one of the greatest obstacles didn't come from the market, nor from outside financial experts. It came from the people closest to me. I never used to think much about it. I grew up in a family that was fairly carefree with money, spending to relieve emotions, to prove something to the world, or simply because we deserved it. No one ever taught me that generosity without financial limits could become a trap. And I walked right into that trap, gently, unconsciously, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I didn't realize that failing to set financial boundaries with loved ones who had reckless spending habits was slowly eroding my own financial future. When you go out to dinner with someone who always picks the most expensive restaurant, you feel pressured to keep up. When your friends upgrade their car, your old one suddenly feels inferior. Little by little, your spending becomes less about actual need and more about staying in sync. And that's when you start losing yourself. I'm reminded of a story about Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of our time. Despite being a billionaire, he still lives in the house he bought in 1958, drives an old car, and starts his mornings with a McDonald's breakfast sandwich. To him, wealth isn't about spending money to show how much you have. It's about mastering your habits, living below your means, and investing the rest for the future. I began to change. I learned to draw boundaries, gently but firmly. When family members asked for open-ended loans, I learned how to say no without guilt. When friends encouraged impulsive, lavish shopping sprees, I smiled and walked away because I knew what my priorities were. I chose a simpler life, spent less than I earned, and funneled the difference into long-term investments. I also came to understand something critically important. Lifestyle inflation is the silent killer of our financial well-being. Every time your income increases, you don't have to live more extravagantly. Let your growth be an opportunity to save and invest more, not an excuse to chase a fantasy lifestyle. If you feel like you're being swept into someone else's spending habits, stop. Ask yourself, is this truly my choice, or am I being influenced by someone else? Because a solid financial future doesn't begin with a big number. It begins with the small boundaries you're brave enough to set today. After I learned how to set financial boundaries in my relationships, a deeper lesson was waiting quietly around the corner. This time, it came from something seemingly invisible yet incredibly powerful: interest rates. Albert Einstein once said, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't pays it." That line isn't just philosophical. It's a clear warning for anyone unknowingly standing on the wrong side of that equation. I used to be one of them. In my younger years, I saw debt as a convenience. Buy now, pay later. My first credit card felt like a rite of passage into adulthood, but I didn't realize I was opening the door to a silent thief, an invisible cost that slowly ate away at my wealth day after day. High interest. At first, the debt was just a few $100s. But within a year of careless spending, that balance ballooned into the thousands. And I barely noticed. That's the danger. Interest doesn't scream. It doesn't knock. It doesn't remind you. It just quietly grows with every late payment. I watched the same cycle repeat itself with so many young people around me. Someone buys a car on loan. Before they finish paying it off, they're already upgrading to a newer model. Another racks up student debt, then uses a credit card to reward themselves after finals. And all the while, they forget, when you're in high-interest debt, you're not working for yourself, you're working for the bank. I started flipping the script, shifting my focus from spending to paying off debt, especially the kind with high interest. I learned to tell the difference between good debt and bad debt. I stopped taking out unnecessary consumer loans and committed to clearing my credit card balance before even thinking about investing. Steve Jobs once said, "Focus is about saying no." And I learned to say no to the tempting illusion of a borrowed lifestyle meant to uphold an image that wasn't even real. You know who once carried the weight of debt and came out stronger? Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks. He grew up in a struggling family, his parents living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt. But instead of staying trapped in that cycle, Schultz learned to save, invest, and eventually built Starbucks into a global coffee empire. From my own journey, I came to understand something fundamental. Interest is a double-edged sword. If you learn how to use it, it can grow your wealth exponentially. But if you let it control you, it will quietly erode your life piece by piece. And I chose the side of control. I chose to learn the rules of the game instead of being played by them. You can do the same. Start today. Review every debt you carry, create a smart repayment plan, and steer clear of those sweet traps of buy now, pay later. Because in the game of personal finance, the winner isn't the one who earns the most. It's the one who knows how to keep the most. I used to believe that a big dream meant a big house, that a spacious, well-kept home with multiple rooms and a vast yard was the ultimate symbol of success. But then I realized some things only shine because they're under the spotlight, not because they hold true value. After I broke free from the trap of bad debt and learned the power of compound interest, I started revisiting every financial decision I'd ever made. And the one that hit me the hardest was the house I was living in. I had bought a home that was twice as large as I actually needed, simply because it looked appropriate for the job title I held at the time, because my friends were also upgrading, because I wanted people to believe I had made it. But in return, I was paying twice the property taxes. My utility bills read like a novel every month. Maintenance and repairs never seemed to end. I thought I owned an asset, but in truth, I was pouring money into a high-maintenance liability called pride. And I wasn't alone. In America, countless families fall into the same trap. According to a report by Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies, millions of Americans live in homes that stretch far beyond their financial means just to feel accomplished. But here's what most people forget. True wealth isn't defined by the size of your house. It's measured by your ability to choose a space that grants you freedom. Take Warren Buffett. The man is worth tens of billions of dollars, yet he still lives in the same modest home in Omaha, Nebraska, a house he bought for just $31,500 back in 1958. Buffett understands that real value doesn't lie in bricks and walls. It lies in financial security and the freedom to live life on your own terms. I had to relearn how to view a house, not as a trophy, but as a tool, a means to support life, not something to prove personal worth. I started applying the principle of right-sizing, choosing a living space that was just enough, efficient, manageable, and within my means. When I did, I felt a massive weight lift, not just financially, but emotionally too. I gained more time to actually live, more resources to invest, and most importantly, I no longer needed anyone to validate my worth through a street address. If you're thinking about upgrading your home just to keep up, pause and ask yourself, do I truly need this, or am I just craving approval? Because sometimes the bigger the space, the easier it is to lose yourself in unnecessary expenses. Remember this, the best kind of home is the one that gives you enough room to grow, not the one that keeps you gasping under financial pressure. I used to think my house was perfectly fine. In terms of space, it met all my needs. But not everything that looks good on the outside reflects its true value on the inside. Even though I had tried to choose a home with a reasonable size, there was one thing I hadn't anticipated. The utilities inside were far less efficient than I assumed. I wasn't just paying a hefty amount each month for electricity and water. I was also hit with repair bills I could never predict. These small details, if ignored, quickly pile up into massive expenses. Like the leaky faucet I kept brushing off as harmless, or the ancient air conditioning unit that ran nonstop, day and night, yet barely cooled the house. Within just a few months, I started to see the absurd amount of money slipping through the cracks. Turns out, not checking your home systems regularly can cost you far more than you'd imagine. And I'm not the only one who's been in this situation. In fact, many people, even successful business professionals, fall into the same trap. They invest in impressive homes, yet overlook the hidden costs in the details. A perfect example? Elon Musk. Despite his massive wealth, Musk is relentless about optimizing and cutting unnecessary expenses, from improving energy efficiency in his factories to selecting cost-saving utility systems in his personal residence. That kind of attention to detail saves him millions each year. So what's the solution? It's not to let things slide, it's to act and improve. What I needed was to start with small but critical actions, upgrading to energy-efficient appliances, regularly checking water and electrical systems, and replacing outdated devices. If those small changes could significantly reduce my monthly expenses, then why not give a shot? Just imagine, if you consistently inspect your plumbing, electricity, or air conditioning, you'll realize that outdated or leaking systems might be draining your finances without you even knowing it. Real savings often start with the smallest steps, and those steps can lead to massive change. Success, much like financial freedom, doesn't always come from giant leaps. Sometimes it's built through steady, intentional progress. And when you begin to improve the overlooked details of your daily life, you'll start to feel the difference. Not just in your budget, but in the sense of freedom you're slowly building for yourself. There were definitely times in my life when I justified procrastination. It's just a small crack. It's only an old door. Just a few stains on the wall. No big deal. I'll get to it eventually. But those very thoughts led me into a situation that made one thing painfully clear. Procrastination often comes at a much higher cost than taking action early on. The simplest example? One time I noticed a small leak in the roof after a heavy rainstorm. At first, it was just a few drops falling. I thought, no need to rush, I'll fix it later. It's not that serious. But just a few months later, the leak had grown worse. Rainwater started seeping into the house, damaging the entire structure. In the end, I didn't just pay for roof repairs. I had to cover the cost of replacing rotted beams, damaged walls, and structural repairs that could have been avoided entirely. What I once believed could wait until later ended up costing me far more than if I had acted right away. It's the same in life and in business. Problems that seem small at first, if ignored, can grow into full-blown disasters. Successful people like Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett don't let minor issues spiral out of control. They take care of them immediately before they snowball into something much bigger. Take Warren Buffett, for example. Before investing in a company, he insists that his team examine every detail, down to the tiniest line item in a financial report or the subtle nuances of a management strategy. All of it, because he knows that what seems like a small oversight today could jeopardize the long-term stability of the entire company tomorrow. So what's the solution to this habit of delay? Don't wait until things go too far before you take action. Fix it early. Act now. That's how you save not just money, but time, energy, and peace of mind. Regular check-ins, whether it's your home or your business, can help you spot weak points before they turn into expensive problems. And when you stay proactive, you avoid the kind of financial hits that come from neglect. It's a simple but incredibly valuable lesson. Fix the crack before it becomes a storm. Being proactive and disciplined with maintenance isn't just about protecting your property. It's about saving yourself from regret, financially, emotionally, and practically, in the long run. At some point, we've all asked ourselves, is this brand new car really worth what I'm paying for it? Well, I bought my first new car. I had no idea that the moment I drove it off the dealership lot, it had already lost at least 20% of its value. And within 5 years, that same car could lose up to 60% of its original worth. Just hearing that number is hard to swallow. Yet, month after month, I kept making payments to the bank. I kept renewing insurance for a vehicle whose value was evaporating. Maintenance costs, oil changes, new tires, they all landed squarely on my shoulders while adding no real financial return. At times, I had to stop and ask myself, do I really need a new car? Or was I just chasing the feeling of ownership, trading my money and energy for something that never truly gave anything back? When I look at people who've built real wealth, I notice they're never seduced by flashy purchases that don't serve a real purpose. Take Warren Buffett, for example, one of the greatest investors of all time. He still drives an older car, even though he could afford a fleet of luxury vehicles. He once said, "I don't need expensive things to prove my worth." That mindset of spending wisely and intentionally was one of the foundations of his financial empire. So what's the solution? Don't let the shine of a brand new car blind you. If you don't truly need it, go for a used car, but make sure it's in excellent condition. A well-maintained, pre-owned vehicle can still offer comfort, reliability, and most importantly, financial breathing room. For me, choosing a quality used car helped free up a significant portion of my finances. Instead of struggling with monthly payments for something that lost value the moment I bought it, I was able to redirect my money toward things that truly mattered. And from that moment on, I started reevaluating my financial decisions. Sometimes, wisdom doesn't come from owning expensive things. It comes from the awareness to choose wisely. By now, you've probably realized financial freedom isn't just about how much money you make. It's about how well you manage and allocate the resources you already have. The story of insurance is nothing new to most of us. In fact, I've been in a situation that many people find themselves in, paying an expensive premium without fully understanding what I was actually buying. Insurance is essential in modern life. But have you ever truly grasped the value you're paying for? Or are you simply swept away by persuasive marketing, only to end up paying far more than necessary? I remember a time when I decided to buy car insurance. Instead of doing my own research, I listened to the salesperson, someone trained to craft appealing pitches. They convinced me to go with the most premium package, loaded with benefits I didn't need. And so, month after month, I handed over a large chunk of money and got very little real value in return. By the time I realized my car didn't require such an extravagant insurance policy, it was already too late. The truth is, if we don't take the time to research and carefully compare different insurance plans, we can easily end up overpaying, just like I did. Too many people rely solely on smooth sales talk without truly examining the fine print, the real benefits, or whether the policy even fits their actual needs. That's how people end up spending far too much on things that aren't really necessary. A perfect example is Elon Musk, founder of Tesla and SpaceX. Despite being one of the wealthiest individuals on the planet, he never spends on expensive services unless he fully understands the value they provide. Musk constantly emphasizes the importance of optimizing costs and practicing smart spending. He believes that just because you can afford something doesn't mean you should. Wasteful spending only devalues the true worth of your money. So how do we avoid falling into the trap of overpaying for insurance? The answer is simple. Compare your options carefully. Before you commit, make sure you fully understand what benefits you're getting and whether they actually serve your needs. Another helpful tip, consider increasing your deductible. Doing so can lower your monthly premium while still providing solid protection. Remember, smart spending isn't just about cutting costs. It's about knowing exactly what you need and avoiding decisions that don't make sense. When you're clear about what you're doing, you'll not only save a significant amount of money, you'll be able to invest it into something far more meaningful in your life. There are moments in life when I've realized how easily administrative penalties can turn into senseless expenses, all because of forgetfulness. And I'm sure you've been there too. Forgetting to pay your taxes on time, missing a utility bill deadline, or letting a license renewal slip through the cracks. These penalties can add up hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars. That's not a small number when you really think about it. But the worst part is, all of it could have been avoided with better organization and financial management. I remember one time I forgot to file my taxes by the deadline. The penalty wasn't small, and all I could do was blame myself. How did I let something so basic slip? But it wasn't just taxes. There were monthly bills, subscription renewals, service fees, all piling up simply because I lacked a system to manage my personal finances. Big or small, these missed payments left me feeling frustrated and regretful. But I learned something important. Everything becomes so much easier when you have a system in place. And the solution is surprisingly simple. Use financial management apps. These tools don't just track your expenses. They remind you of due dates, flag important bills, and help you avoid late fees before they even become a problem. One of the smartest habits I've picked up, setting reminders for deadlines and upcoming payments. It's a small change, but it's made a big difference. Take someone like Warren Buffett. He's not just known for his incredible investments. He's admired for how meticulously he manages his personal finances. He always knows what he's spending and when. That's one of the reasons he's been able to stay financially strong for decades. If someone like Warren Buffett takes personal expense tracking seriously, then so can you. You should, especially if it means avoiding unnecessary penalties. The real solution is in your hands. Don't let administrative penalties become a burden just because of forgetfulness. Start organizing. Take control of your finances today. With smart tools and a bit of discipline, you can easily stay on top of your obligations and never miss a deadline again. All it takes is a little patience and structure, and you'll no longer be throwing money away on fees that should have never existed in the first place. There are times in life when I've had to face the harsh truth. Health is the most important thing, yet it's often the thing I neglect the most. I used to think that I was young, that I had all the time in the world, and I never gave much thought to taking care of myself. But then, one day, I realized that neglecting my health wasn't just a minor mistake. It was a decision that could cost me everything, including my life. If you keep putting off taking care of your health, the price you'll pay will be steep. I've witnessed close friends and colleagues fall victim to serious diseases because they didn't eat well, didn't exercise, and skipped regular checkups. They believed that work, money, and success would last forever. But in the end, illness struck without warning. It wasn't just the enormous medical bills they had to bear. It was the loss of income during their prolonged illness. And even worse, they didn't just lose money. They lost precious years of their lives. I'm sure you've heard stories like these before. One of the most striking examples is Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. Despite being one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, he couldn't escape the grip of cancer. A man with billions of dollars, who had everything that many people dream of, yet he couldn't control his health. And in the end, all the wealth and power couldn't buy him more time. Steve Jobs once said, "Your health is the one thing you can't buy back once it's gone." And he was right. When health is gone, everything else becomes meaningless. But I don't want you to make the same mistake. What's crucial is that we need to invest in our health as a long-term commitment. Don't wait until illness knocks at your door to realize it's too late. The only way to protect yourself is to start with the simplest things: eating healthy, exercising regularly, and, most importantly, not neglecting annual health checkups. The small steps you take each day will add up to huge results in the future. Think of taking care of your health as an investment, just like you would invest in a long-term project. And remember, the most successful people understand the value of health. For instance, Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Group, has shared that he spends at least 30 minutes every day exercising and always maintains a healthy diet. He knows that a healthy body is the foundation for sustaining the creativity and energy needed for work. So, don't ignore your health. Taking care of yourself today is how you protect your success in the future. Make exercise, healthy eating, and regular health checkups an essential part of your life. When you're healthy, you don't just live longer. You can achieve so much more in life. Looking back at my past financial decisions, one thing is painfully clear. I neglected one of the most important expenses, an expense that, if not optimized, can take away a significant portion of my wealth: taxes. We all know that taxes are one of the biggest costs we face, but not everyone understands that. If we don't optimize taxes, we're essentially throwing money away to the government when we could be doing things differently. And do you know what? Optimizing taxes isn't some complex or abstract concept. If you're not using legal tax reduction strategies, you're leaving a lot of money in the hands of the government that you could be keeping for yourself. In fact, many individuals and even successful businesses have made millions by properly optimizing taxes. Don't believe me? Look at founders of major companies like Warren Buffett. He shared multiple times that he pays less in taxes than his employees, thanks to smart investment strategies and effective tax optimization. This is the big lesson I learned. Taxes are not something you blindly pay. They're something you can optimize if you know how. When I started learning about taxes, I realized that there are many legal ways to lighten the tax burden, such as leveraging tax deductions from eligible expenses or investing in financial tools that reduce taxes. Another great example is Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX. He's always known how to take advantage of tax incentives for tech and renewable energy companies to reduce tax costs. Thanks to this strategy, he didn't just help his companies grow strong, but also saved himself millions of dollars. So what's the solution? If you want to minimize your tax costs, you need to fully understand tax optimization strategies. There's no better way than thoroughly researching the tax deductions you can take advantage of, and, if needed, consulting with a tax professional to help you optimize costs legally. Doing this won't just help you save money. It'll also help you invest smarter for the future. Don't let the government take what you could legally keep. You can master taxes instead of letting them master you. Remember, every expense can be reconsidered, and you might be missing out on valuable tax-saving opportunities that many successful people have taken advantage of. Consider tax optimization as part of your long-term financial strategy. If you do this well, you won't just save money, you'll also be building a strong financial foundation for the future. As I reflect on my financial journey, I realize a truth that many of us overlook. Wealth doesn't come from magic, but from the sharp awareness in managing money. I once thought that my wealth would grow over time, thanks to smart investments and a bit of luck. But then I realized that wealth isn't just dependent on big wins like a successful investment or a random opportunity. On the contrary, it's those small, recurring costs that silently chip away at my wealth day by day. It wasn't a financial crisis or any sudden event, but rather 13 quiet yet persistent expenses that were the main culprits behind my diminishing assets. These expenses, though not large, occurred consistently, subtly eating into the financial resources I had. It could have been unnecessary service fees, small transactions I wasn't paying attention to, or overspending on things that didn't really matter. Each time, I didn't realize that I was slowly drifting away from my financial goals. So how do we control these costs and prevent them from eroding our wealth? The answer lies in awareness and action. When I became more mindful and recognized these silent expenses, I was able to make the right decisions to cut out the unnecessary spending, regaining control of my cash flow. As Warren Buffett once said, if you don't manage your costs, your assets will automatically disappear. This is a powerful reminder of the importance of tracking and optimizing your expenses, no matter how small. A clear example of this is Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. When he first started, he didn't just focus on creating a great product, but also made sure to optimize costs. Amazon continuously improved its operations, cutting out unnecessary expenses, and thereby generated large profits without relying on unpredictable financial decisions. His sharp focus on managing cash flow helped him build a powerful empire, starting with small but steady steps. Think of your cash flow as a river. Small expenses are like little rain showers, quietly falling and gradually draining the river dry. But when you become aware and proactively control those showers, you can keep your financial river full and strong. The key is not to let these quiet expenses slowly erode your wealth without even realizing it. True wealth comes from being mindful and having a long-term plan to control your cash flow. Let awareness guide you, and in doing so, not only will you protect your assets, but you will also create lasting, sustainable wealth. So together, we've taken a moment to reflect on what truly matters in life. Wealth doesn't come from magic or numbers on a balance sheet. It comes from the ability to recognize and control those small costs, those seemingly harmless habits that silently impact our lives. Remember, every decision you make today will affect your future. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope this story inspires you to reassess your choices. If you have any stories, reflections, or challenges in life, don't hesitate to share them with us. We'd love to hear from you and work together to find solutions. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Subscribe so you don't miss out on future content, helping you live a more meaningful life. Together, we will continue the journey of discovery and growth. Thank you once again, and I wish you a wonderful day ahead.